Hello and welcome to this video on the post-war 20th century economy. My focus this week is Dr. Norman Borlaug. Dr. Borlaug was one of the most significant innovators of the 20th century, and it has been said that through his work he saved more lives than any other person who has ever lived. Dr. Borlaug was one of the central figures in the Green Revolution in the latter half of the 20th century. This was a movement which transformed agriculture worldwide through the introduction of high-yielding varieties of crops in combination with the extensive use of fertilizer, irrigation, and modern farming techniques. The Green Revolution must be understood in the context of globalization. In the 20th century, technological advances connected the world, and vast increases in population brought the challenge of world hunger to the forefront. Dr. Borlaug's lifelong goal was to meet that challenge and feed a hungry world. Dr. Borlaug grew up on a small farm in Cresco, Iowa. He later attended the University of Minnesota, graduating in 1937, and then returned to the University of Minnesota a few years later to study plant pathology, earning his PhD in 1942. In 1943, Dr. Borlaug was selected to work on a team being sent to Mexico to develop new, high-yielding varieties of wheat. This was despite the fact that Dr. Borlaug did not speak Spanish, had never been outside of the United States, and had never worked with wheat before. But he was selected for his personality. Dr. Borlaug was not easily defeated, and he was filled with zeal for his work. While in Mexico, Dr. Borlaug led from the front, encouraging researchers to get out into the fields and get their hands dirty. His teams took part in selective crossbreeding of wheat varieties in order to combine the beneficial genetic traits of multiple strains of wheat into new, superior varieties. By the 1950s, multiple new varieties of wheat had been developed. These varieties had higher yields and were more resistant to disease, pests, and environmental conditions, leading to a huge increase in Mexico's wheat production. In the 1960s, Dr. Borlaug made several trips to India, working with local researchers to develop high-yield varieties of wheat well adapted to the conditions there. India was a country facing food shortages when these programs started. By 1974, India was growing enough cereal crops to feed its own population. The Green Revolution continued throughout the rest of the century and spread throughout the whole world, transforming agriculture on every continent. New high-yield varieties were developed for rice, corn, beans, and dozens of other crops. Simply put, the Green Revolution fed the world. According to some estimates, in 1962, there were 1 billion people in developing countries who did not get enough to eat. That was 50% of the population in those nations. By 1997, that number had dropped to 20% of the population, even with the increases in total population. It is estimated that without the increases in food production brought about by the Green Revolution, that at least 2 billion people would go hungry every year around the world. In 1970, Dr. Borlaug was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his lifelong efforts to feed a hungry world. In 1986, Dr. Borlaug created his own award, the World Food Prize. The World Food Prize Foundation is headquartered in Des Moines, Iowa. Its mission is to promote innovation and action which will increase the quality, quantity, and availability of food for all, and has multiple programs to accomplish this goal. The World Food Prize Foundation hosts an annual awards ceremony where the World Food Prize is given to individuals in recognition of their efforts to increase the world food supply. It also hosts annual conferences to discuss agricultural innovations and sponsors educational programs for youth. Dr. Norman Borlaug was one of the most significant innovators of the 20th century, and he left a lasting legacy with a global impact, a legacy of feeding the world. Thank you.